Hi, everyone. Welcome to my presentation on uncovering bias, a review of racial and gender bias in data science. Um, this is a very interesting topic to me, and wanted to bring the light to a lot of my future colleagues about the importance of gender and racial bias that is indeed in data science and in certain algorithms and whatnot. So today our conversation will be about bias. Today, how it affects data science and how we can get rid of it to make society better. We will talk about how bias is built into society, the power of algorithms, bias in data scientists, how we are automating bias, and a case study on how Amazon algorithms were affected by bias. Our conclusion will tie everything together. Racial and gender injustice is something that still prevails in our society. Racism is still present in human hiring, housing, and credit choices. As a future data scientist, I've had the good fortune to work on projects that has helped clients meet diverse needs. However, racism is still one of those most fundamental and important concerns we do face today. Um, I've heard that numbers don't always tell the truth. But my experience with Google Images, search, or browsing through photos on Instagram and Facebook has convinced me that they do. The data is frequently deceptive, especially when it comes to images of women in revealing outfits, um, people of color. So, is data just data? And how is data used? Right. Um, One of the things we do want to uncover here is using bad data. Um, I'm delighted that it's finally being implemented more frequently. Um, Predictive policing and something we will talk about a little bit later is an intriguing notion. In an article by BBC crime correspondent Simon Tisdall, um, it's easy to see why, in particular areas um, where hotspots for crime in the past, um, he did go into argue that the data-driven policing has caused people to be unsuspected, um, um, policed because of their skin, because of their color. So again, we're going to get into that a little bit later. So eradicating gender and racial bias. So the blind application of machine learning runs the risk of amplifying biases present in data, such as the danger is facing us with the world embedding a popular framework to represent text data as vectors, which has been used in many machine learning and natural language processing tasks. Um, we do show that even world embeddings trained on Google News articles exhibit female male gender stereotypes to a disturbing extent. Uh, this raises concerns because there's widespread use of, um, as we describe, often tends to amplify these biases. Geometrically, gender bias is first shown to be captured by direction in the word embedding, right? So, second, gender neutral words are shown to be linearly separable from gender definition words in the word embedding. Using these properties, we provide a methodology um, for modifying and embedding to remove gender stereotypes. In this study by Pisani in 2021, um, they did go on to say that the metrics that was defined to quantify both direct and indirect gender biases in these embeddings, and develop algorithms to debias that embedding. So using crowd worker evaluations as well as standard benchmarks um, in these embeddings while preserving the useful properties such as the ability to kind of cluster related concepts and to solve analogy tasks. The resultant embeddings can be used in applications without amplifying gender biases. So there's ways out there that our colleagues are trying to eradicate these gender and racial biases in the programs. Our society has been built on bias, right? I think that's something we all can agree on. Artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly prevalent in our everyday lives. The societal effects are contentious. Excuse me, um, with ramifications for gender, class, and racial relations, depending on who you ask. According to a recent research, Google's natural language processing system reinforces prejudices against individuals with accents, which means that they may interpret your accent for something else if it sounds similar to like a different word, right? Humans are known to be prone to biases, which can impact algorithms. But how common are these deeply established cultural issues in technologies that we use on a daily basis? You know, the key is to comprehend what AI is doing for society and how it intersects with gender, class, and race. I mean, let's be honest, it's no secret that when it comes to artificial intelligence, cautious thinking is required because historically victimizers may become perpetrators, right? So there is a notion out there that we have to be very mindful of how what the data is representing and how we're using algorithms to work with the data. When in terms of face recognitions technology, um, the accuracy and biases have been a source of worry among industry professionals. Several software companies recently indicated that they would no longer build or sell these services to state or local police agencies, which is a win for a lot of people who were affected, primarily people of color. Um, um, so these companies said they would no longer build these services and sell them to state or local police agencies. Uh, but it did kind of spark a heated discussion over whether this will lead to discrimination against particular races and genders. The concept that the AI technology may be racist has gained traction over the past 10 years. Um, One of the questions I want to leave you guys with is how can we as data science verify that our machine learning program will never enable racism, right? So how can we, when we're creating these robust projects, um, either perpetuate racism or um, try to fix our a good way to lower it. So lower the perception of racism. The hazards of AI are obvious, but as we know, its potential to learn from human mistakes. We can see how it's useful. It may be using AI. Uh, how can we assure that the technology not only learns from um, mistakes, but um, from gender biases or racial biases, but also how can we make them better, right? Garcia adds, when algorithms or their underlying data have biases, the most basic functions of your computer will reinforce those prejudices. So, as I mentioned before, we need to be mindful of our unconscious biases when it comes to creating artificial intelligence. The code created may have implications for years and even affect how we live our lives. So, why shouldn't we pay attention? The dangers of incorporating racism and other prejudices into the code that will be used to make judgments for years to come are significant. Companies should pay attention to these um, and ensure that this does not occur, since it can have severe consequences for society as a whole. Artificial intelligence, AI, has grown fast in recent years, yet we must exercise caution before integrating AI too completely into our lives or institutions, since what happens if the findings are end up being skewed, which will end up being skewed. This might be due to the unintentional biases creeping into machine learning algorithms, which haven't been wholly free of criticism over their data gathering tactics, even when utilized by giants like Google, Amazon, uh, or and even Facebook. The purpose of predicting policing software programs such as Geographic Information Systems (GIS), um, data analysts and analyst algorithms or sensing it is to prevent crime before it happens. Um, at St. George Hospital Medical School in London, a computer program was employed to evaluate applications in the 1970s and 1980s. Because they were women or had no non-European sounding names, the bias code refused interviews 60 times. We can see how, despite the fact that the algorithm was not built with malice in the mind, it nonetheless perpetuated gender prejudices. Algorithms are the heart of technology, influencing everything from file comprehension to series responses when you're asking a question. When algorithms contain biases, they can perpetuate preconceptions by delivering advice that isn't necessarily correct or beneficial without any human interaction, such as advising someone to pick up the phone because you're probably late. Levy and Hassner in 2015 wrote about facial recognition. One of the things that they mentioned was that facial recognition has come a long way from simple tasks such as face detection, identification, and classification to complex human-like tasks like name sending and language swapping. So again, as we mentioned before, it's getting better. Data scientists are human. Data scientists, like everyone else, are unaware of how unconscious thoughts may impact them when working creatively. Depending on how consciousness the engineers were on their own personal ideas while creating the system, the various subjective decisions they made might enhance or lessen racial bias. Um, Machine learning systems have significantly difficulty with these because they don't care about the fairness or bias unless they're programmed to do so, right? So again, we have to be mindful as humans that when we are creating these algorithms, that it may contain our own personal biases, right? So correlation does not imply causality. Um, AI systems are both opaque and highly scalable. Um, we have to be mindful again that we're creating systems that are being employed um, by many people are free from biases. So again, creating a better world starts with us. Despite our best efforts to avoid it, bias does exist everywhere again, right? We know this. The attitude, ideas, and assumptions we have about groups and individuals are related to our implicit bias. Implicit prejudice is common in the in the IT business, not just in hiring methods, but also in productive and in products and technologies, right? So in the Internet of Gadgets, we have a high potential of revealing unconscious racial prejudices. In our general relations, there was a chat bot actually called Tay that was taught how to tweet racist remarks by human users. Um, in this example, the transparency in AI powered decision making is the solution. But however, we must explain the reasons behind each output and be prepared to alter or just replies with human comprehension, right? So a chatbot's going to do what it's told. It's not going to think like a human or have those emotions associated with that. So again, being very mindful that these when we're creating these programs or evaluating these softwares, that we're not putting our implicit biasness in the programs. The limits of technology are frequently cited as reasons why some individuals refuse to use it. This is what we refer to as artificial stupidity. This word again refers to any situation in which a computer makes judgments based on factors that are not internal to it. Or impact. Racism has existed since before recorded history, but its effects have remained hidden. What is automable is prejudice against people of color. So, like for example, like will black pedestrians and drivers be at risk? Or alternatively, like may these robots cause hygiene issues or for non-white employees? Harvard University did a research and has developed a useful racial implicit bias test that has yielded some important insights on the prevalence of implicit biases in the United States. Implicit prejudice results in harsher prison sentences when blacks are misclassified as more prone to repeat crime. Um, I want to spend a minute or two talking about Amazon. There was a really there was an unfortunate exposure of the biases that went on in hiring at Amazon. Amazon machine learning specialists uncovered a really huge problem with their new recruiting engine. The company's computers were programmed to screen candidates by studying trends in males who applied for more than 10 years, right? Amazon's technology penalized resumes that included terms like women or women's chess club captain. So they took the data for a span of 10 years, and as a result, it was only hiring or recruit or um, revealing people who were only who had these things in their resumes. So again, um, we got to really be mindful of how we're looking at how we're hiring or the algorithms that we're using to do stuff like that. Um, Bolden Barrett wrote a really good article, and according to a recent Career Builder survey, 55% of U.S. human resources managers, sorry, I believe AI will become an integral part of their work within the next 5 years, with many believing that this trend will only accelerate, putting pressure on professionals already struggling in today's economy due to a lack of demand for more efficient methods. Look, algorithms need to be trained on data from a population that is similar to the target audience. If they are to be accurate, it's critical not only because it will help you as a business owner or manager, but also because it's something that if it goes wrong with one particular group, can run the risk of you being sued for discrimination in the future. Pre-existing data sets are impossible to eliminate all biases, especially when we have no way of knowing what biases and algorithms develops on its own. Instead of taking a risk, periodically retrain your algorithm data from the real world. Uh, Again, we must we must be vigilant and help each other. make this world a better place. Thank you for your time.